Hi everyone, I'm Ivy. I'm going to tell you my story. It's sad, but it's heartfelt. It's about how I fell into a coma, and when I woke up from it, I was a completely different person. I'll try to tell it from the beginning. One Friday night, I was sitting with my stupid textbooks and studying for another college exam. I hated studying. So I was excited to get a call from my friend Jeremy. "Hey Ivy, would you like to go clubbing tonight?" "I have an exam tomorrow morning. I have to study," I sighed back. "Oh, come on, it'll be fun." Jeremy hung up on me. I tried to keep reading, but after a few minutes, I threw the book away and ran to get ready. What the hell are those textbooks gonna do? I'll get ready later. An hour later, I was at the club, and I was heading into the middle of the dance floor where Jeremy and my friend Claire were partying. I waved at the guys, and they waved back. I couldn't really talk because of the music. We were having a great time on the dance floor for a couple of hours straight, when all of a sudden I started to feel dizzy and a painful stabbing in my chest. My eyes went black, and then I don't remember anything else. The last thing I saw was Jeremy taking me in his arms. When I opened my eyes, I saw the doctors. Their masked faces leaned over me. I was lying on a gurney, and they were pushing me forward in the hospital corridor. "What's going on?" I asked in a weak voice. One of the doctors answered, "You have heart failure. You need surgery." "What? How?" I was so scared, I even tried to get up. "Calm down, miss. Save your strength." They wheeled me into the operating room. Behind the glass door, I saw Jeremy's worried face. The presence of a friend briefly calmed me down. The doctor put the anesthesia mask on me and said, "Breathe deeply." So I did. The anesthetic kicked in and everything started to blur in front of my eyes. A few seconds later, I fell into a deep sleep, and I found myself in a beautiful park during sunset. It was dark enough in the park, but the lanterns lit it up with warm light. I touched the leaves on the trees, felt the benches. I knew it was a dream, but everything there was so real. A voice came from behind me. "Ivy, wait!" It was Jeremy. He jogged happily towards me. "How did you end up here?" "I thought I'd keep you company." Jeremy and I were walking through the park, talking and laughing loudly. Suddenly, the lights started to go out one by one, and the park went dark. There was a cold, bone-chilling wind. I wanted to snuggle up to Jeremy. I looked around, but my friend was nowhere to be found. He was gone. "Jeremy, where are you?" I screamed. Suddenly, I saw a man in a raincoat at the end of the path and decided to ask him if he had seen my friend. I cautiously approached the stranger. "Sir, have you seen a tall guy around here?" The man slowly pulled the hood off of his head, and I squealed in fear when I saw what he was hiding. A bare skull with empty eye sockets was staring straight at me. It was death. It extended its white bones toward me. I turned and ran away from it, away from that horrible park. As I found out later, while I was having nightmares, Jeremy was in the hospital, fighting for my life. He was screaming to the doctors, "You have no right to disconnect her from the machines!" "Sir, she has been in a coma for weeks," the doctor calmly answered him. "As you know, Ivy's parents are dead, and if we don't find other relatives, she's bound to wake up!" Jeremy continued to argue, and my nightmare continued. I ran through the park toward the gate, and death pursued me. The huge gate was about to close in front of me, but at the last moment I realized I could squeeze through the narrow gap. The gate closed and locked Death inside. He stretched his arms through the bars. I looked at him again. Instead of a naked skull, my father's face was now looking at me. He said to me, "Stay with us, sunshine." Dad's face disappeared and Mom's appeared in its place. "Yes, Ivy, we miss you so much." I felt tears run down my cheeks and replied, "I miss my parents so much, but you are not them." Meanwhile, in the hospital room, Jeremy was holding my hand, and he was telling me to come out of my coma. The doctor's words that I might be disconnected from the machines really freaked him out. "Ivy, please, come to your senses. You have to live. And just at that moment, I came back from the dark park, back to reality, and came to my senses. Ivy! Jeremy yelled when I opened my eyes. He hugged me tightly. I smiled and hugged my friend back. Thanks for helping me, I whispered in his ear. A few weeks later, when I became stronger, Jeremy picked me up from the hospital. Before they discharged me, the doctor gave me a lot of instructions that I had to abide by. No partying or heavy lifting, Ivy. Your heart may not be able to take the strain. You're very lucky this time. I didn't argue with the doctor. I thanked him and went home. Jeremy was kind enough to drive me home with his car. And on the way he asked me, "Do you want me to stay with you?" No, I want to be alone now. That was true. I didn't want any company at all. The first night, I went through my old photos. My parents, my relatives, me as a baby. I stroked the photos with my hand. Then my eyes fell on a portrait of my grandmother. It was stitched together from several pieces. The day my parents died, I tore it up myself and then glued it back together. All these years, I was sure that my grandmother was to blame for the death of my closest people. After all, we were on our way to visit her that night. I missed my grandmother, but I didn't know if I could ever forgive her. I went to the window and looked at the moon in the sky. I don't know why, but after I came out of my coma, I kept thinking about how fast time flies. Because of that, I wanted to spend it well. For days, I sat at my books. The college let me retake the exam I had missed. In the end, the professor gave me a test and an hour to solve it. But I did it in 15 minutes and handed back the answer sheet. The professor adjusted his glasses and said in amazement, "Well done, Ivy. You finally got your head together." I was pleased to hear him praise me, and I made a promise to myself to dedicate more time to my studies. But that night, Claire called me. "Ivy, come to the club. Stop cramming." "Sorry, I can't make it. The doctor said no physical activity." "It's no big deal. Come over." I racked my brains and agreed. A little rest has never hurt anyone. My friend was waiting for me at the club. While we stood in line, I had the feeling that I was doing something wrong. It was our turn, and the security guard let us into the club right away. Claire went in first, and I looked up to see the guard, and I was horrified. Instead of a face, I saw a skull and empty eye sockets. I was frightened and shouted, "No, no, I won't go." I ran away, pushed everyone out of my way. Claire yelled after me, "Ivy, stop! Ivy, stop!" But I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to fall into the bony clutches of death again. I ran home, where it was safe and secure. At home, I hid under the blanket, afraid that death would find me. I don't remember how, but I fell asleep. The next day, I went to college. I ran into my old friend Kathy in the hallway. She was in a hurry, too. "Where are you running off to?" I asked her. "To the nursing home. You didn't know? I'm a volunteer. Can I come with you? Maybe there's something I can do." "You? Volunteer at a nursing home? What happened to Ivy the party girl?" I shrugged at a loss, not knowing what to say. But a contented Kathy tugged on my hand, and we went to the nursing home. I never would have thought that old people could have so much fun. The residents played cards and bingo, joking and laughing all the time, and they liked to talk. That's where I met Mr. Crow. He liked to show me a scrapbook of his pictures and tell me stories from his long life. "That's Janice, my wife and my only love," he once said, showing me a picture of a beautiful woman. "Very beautiful." The man nodded. I took a short pause and then I asked, "Mr. Crow, do you have any regrets?" He sighed deeply. "I guess one is that I didn't spend enough time with my loved ones, and now that I can devote all day to them, none of them are alive." Now I took a deep breath. "Excuse me, Mr. Crow, I have to make a phone call." I went out into the hallway and pulled out my phone. In the phone book, I found a contact called Grandma. But before I had time to press the call, my grandmother called me herself. In a weak voice, she said, "Hi, Ivy. I haven't heard your voice in a long time." I hastened to interrupt her. "Can I come over?" My gut told me I needed to see my grandmother right away. Of course, she didn't mind. As I started the car, a text message came from Jeremy. "Hi, Ivy. Long time no see. Maybe we could go to the cafe tonight?" I couldn't say no to him, because Jeremy was there when I was in the hospital. "Sure, but just for a little while," I typed back. But I didn't have time to send a message. A man appeared in front of my car. I looked at the shape of the man and shrieked. The head was a bare skull with empty eye sockets. No, I have to go now. I pushed the gas pedal, still not sending a message. It's a sign. Death was following me. Or maybe it's coming for my grandmother? I parked in front of the house and ran inside. The door was open. Grandma was lying in bed, in her bedroom. She had an oxygen mask on her face. I ran to her and hugged her. "You came after all," Grandma whispered in a weak voice. "Of course I did. Of course I came." Tears ran down my cheeks. "I'm sorry I blamed you for my parents' death. I was wrong. If only I'd known sooner that you were feeling so bad." Grandma stroked my hair. "It's not your fault. You're just a baby," she said. We hugged each other for a long time. After our family was reunited, Grandma lived only a few days. That evening, the last time I saw her, she said, "I have to go, sunshine. I'll say hello to your parents for you." "I love you, Grandma," I said with tears in my eyes. After I came out of the coma, my life changed forever. I saw death more than once. I thought it was following me and wanted to take me with it, but I soon realized that it only wanted to warn me about mistakes. Or maybe it's just my imagination playing tricks. My life didn't get better, but I got more honest with myself. I'm studying harder and helping people. But Jeremy and Claire are avoiding me now that I'm not hanging out with them every night. Do you think I should go back to my old life? Write your thoughts in the comments. I'd also love it if you would like my story and subscribe to the channel. Bye.